Miami pulls Beck back from the brink of the transfer portal, or from from the NFL. I'm starting this one off like you started the one off the other day. That's good. That's good. Quinn Ewers declares for the draft, and we break down the 10 most impactful transfer moves that have happened so far this offseason. Campus to Canton is live right now. Matt Bruening joined by the always professional Austin Nace here. Campus to Canton live, part of the Campus to Canton podcast feed, and doing the live shows here on the YouTube channel. While you're here, if you're tuning in with us live, guys, why don't you hit a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and help us grow everything that we're trying to do in the college fantasy football space. That's what all I've got for promotions. I'm not Felix. I'm not Felix. If it wasn't apparent from the unprofessional opening, I don't know what else could say it. Matt,
yeah,
your guy Quinn Ewers,
yeah,
NFL draft,
yeah,
he can come back still. There's still some time.
Yeah,
you think that's gonna happen?
No, I don't think he would have announced going to the NFL if he was going to come back. I mean, we've heard the rumors for weeks now, probably, I think, since around the Arizona State game, that he was offered like $6 million, which I think is, a fair amount of money. I take it right now just to go hold a clipboard for somebody if they're offering. So I would assume if there was a team that he really felt he was going to be able to boost his draft stock, he would just take it. I think at this point you just have to go to the NFL. I don't know realistically, because what's the team that's been Oregon, right? That's the team that everybody's talked about. So sure, maybe.
Why is that even the team? Just because they've done it 2 years in a row?
That's probably it. I don't think it's Oregon. I think they want to roll with Dante Moore at this point, or Austin Novosad. But I would assume it's more with the way Tez Johnson's talked about him, the fact that he came back. Lanning wanted him to begin with before he left to go to UCLA. Like, sure, I guess if Oregon was the place that he went to, like, I could see him rebounding some of his stock because they were able to do it for, Bo Nix. I think, Dylan Gabriel's not going to be a first-round pick or anything, but I think, again, really good season. Like, maybe Ewers would have been able to do that, but again, he's been injured every year. I think at this point, you just go to the NFL, and if you really believe in your talent, like, he's probably going to be a backup somewhere, and then if an injury happens or something, he gets the opportunity to get the job, you got to take a hold of it. So I think for him at this point, there's nothing left in college to do. So,
yeah, if someone offers him a big deal, I don't think he would garner that much money.
I don't either.
$6 million? I don't think he would get that. Beck just got $4 million. I don't know the team's
highest paid player in all of college football, apparently.
That's not true, is it?
I just saw the thing and I tweeted it out. I was like, that would not be the player I would pay the most money to. So interesting.
I think his NIL agents just posted that, and they have, so many reasons to do that for their own business sake. I don't believe that he's actually the highest paid. If somebody can corroborate it, but I don't even know how you would corroborate that in the first place.
Yeah.
There's no database of NIL amounts that have to be reported to the NCAA or whatever that we could all publicly access and see that. I don't know how they can even make that claim.
Well, yeah, because wasn't Nico supposedly getting $7 million as a true freshman? Or I think the overall deal was
I think the package was $8 million.
So $8.
The package was $8 million. And Bryce Underwood is making
Oh, yeah, Bryce Underwood. If you combine everything together, yeah, that makes it. Well, are we sure that that's all Carson Beck's getting is $4 million? You got a Lambo, smoking hot girlfriend. Let's just be honest here. It's okay. We can say it.
We don't need to get into the Cavender twins.
I know nothing about them. I honestly know nothing about them. I saw Mox post something in the chat. I guess I didn't know that he was with her and all the volleyball or basketball, whatever it is stuff. I honestly have no idea who they are. I just saw
they suck.
Picture.
They're just typical Zoomer TikTok chicks.
Interesting.
They
suck.
I
literally know nothing about them, but yeah.
I find that weird, but somehow fitting at the same time.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
I actually don't know how much money
we should say.
This is totally going in a different direction than I thought it was going to go. I don't know that Miami has that kind of money.
Aren't they backed by the crypto guy though?
That guy doesn't actually have that much money.
I don't know how much money. I don't pay attention to any of this. If I'm being honest, I don't care. As the players are playing, that's all I really care about.
Yeah, he doesn't actually have like that much money, which kind of came out a year or two ago, and he threatens to sue anybody that says that on social media. But so far, magically, nobody's actually been sued. So that kind of tells you the veracity of the claims there. That
I might just post something on social media tomorrow just for fun.
do it. I'll represent you. Me and Felix. That's a
there you
amazing legal team. We can handle anything that
Felix
that comes your way.
You know what? Since we're already off the rails, I'll just tell this story. I don't even care. I had a scam thing recently happen to me. Like people kept calling me and saying,
you fell for it.
No, I didn't fall for it.
Okay.
I was worried because they kept saying like, hey, if you don't call us back, we're going to sue you. And they called like my family members. So I'm like, okay, like now I'm starting to freak out. So I called Felix, and Felix called them and said he was representing me, and they kept hanging up on him. And he's like, I'm ready for a fight. I want to find out who this person is. And also it was the funniest thing in the world. So yeah. Felix is looking for a fight at this point. So might as well. I'll go out on there tomorrow. I'll make a very nice statement. And then I'm like, if you guys have an issue with me saying this, contact my lawyers, David Eaton at Sharper Review. We'll be good to go.
I wasn't going to say it, but that's actually where Felix is tonight. He has he has a location on that phone number, and he's
I believe it. He
was team sixing that shit. So
he kept calling until they blocked him. It was a very funny interaction. I'll put it that way.
Man, all the hijinks that happens around here that I'm just completely unaware of. Man, it really makes you think. Back to Quinn though. Okay, I mean, so you don't think he goes back? I am in that boat too. I don't know. I mean, he would have to get a phone call offering him a pretty good amount of money. I don't know what that amount is. 4 or 5, somewhere in that range, probably to come back for one more year. Where do you think he goes in the draft?
Man, I still think he's probably a second round pick. I mean, when you really look at what I think Sark said it best, I think it was after the Ohio State game. Like I believe I might butcher this a little bit, something to the effect of like, I don't think Quinn was ever going to be able to live up to what everybody thought he was going to be. I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback. He's as Felix has said for years, he's a game manager. I think that overall he runs the offense very well. I think obviously he still struggles with the deep ball, but like, I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think you could argue he's probably the 4th or 5th quarterback in this draft class. And so I think, just depending on what teams may need, I honestly have not dove that deep into this draft class. I mean, I could probably text Mike and ask him what he thinks overall of what like the deepest positions are and everything. But I still think, as we've talked about before, whether it's fair or not, NFL GMs and teams still care about those 5-star ratings and everything else.
People will say they don't, but they do.
Yeah.
It's not like the top thing on their list, but it factors.
It matters. Yeah. So, I mean, not only was he a 5-star, I believe he was a perfect rating as well. One of the whatever it is now at this point, 5 or 6 players that have had perfect ratings. So, like, I think someone will take a chance on him in the second round, or at least day 2. But I think he'll go in the second round at some point.
I don't know. So first off, I think most mock drafts that have been done up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago were probably just bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty wild because I think there's a whole industry around the NFL draft, and these guys that do it for ESPN and Yahoo and The Athletic, and I don't know, I just keep tossing out large entities that cover football in the NFL draft. And just because I only named those doesn't mean I'm specifically talking about anybody who works at those places, but they do a really bad job up until like February, March. And I think it's because that's when they start talking to NFL GMs and find out who the NFL likes. And then the drafts start getting a lot more accurate. But for months, they've said, a lot of them said, the NFL thinks really highly of him. They think he's really smart. Like, I don't know that the word savant's been thrown around, but they definitely imply that, he's the kind of guy that's going to really wow people in interviews and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. We can't know if that's true or not unless he goes on Gruden's thing.
Yeah.
And, we get to see some clips of him on there. So because I think that's the missing piece that if we knew it, I could more accurately predict where I think he's going to go, Yeah. So,
yeah. I mean, we've heard it. I'm trying to think of who it was that there was a player recently that they kept talking about that. I don't want to say it was Kenny Pickett, but maybe it was Pickett, where they talk about just was like really great in the interviews, among other things. And I mean, I think he was the only one that was drafted in the first round in that class, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not misremembering that. Yeah. So
that blows me away because of how weak his mentality was and his attitude was when he got the NFL.
Yeah. Well, but he had that run where he faked the dude out, fake kneeling. So, everybody loved him. I didn't like. He was like my 5th rated quarterback in that class. So, but I guess I was proven wrong because he was the only one that went in the first round. So
it's really funny. Another side story time here. Maybe 4 years ago on Twitter. It was a really long time ago. I remember there was some sort of discussion going on about quarterbacks in that class.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was just like, even like 2 years out, people were just crapping on that class. They're like, there's nothing really there. Like, it's not that good. And this like random account that didn't follow me that like, it was like, I think it's going to be the best quarterback class of all time. And this was before I was like, just so tired of dealing with stupid. And I was like, oh, like, yeah, why do you think that? Like, and this guy, I think the tweets have been deleted now, but I am not joking when I tell this story. This guy was like, I think Kenny Pickett might be the next Tom Brady. When it was like 2 years out, like Kenny Pickett hadn't even had good years yet.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm a Pitt alum. I went there. I've been a lifelong Pitt fan. I was like, I don't know what you're watching. And then he got drafted in the first round, and I was like, oh my God, this guy might actually be a time traveler. Yeah. And then he sucked. So I was like, it was such a roller coaster on that. But that I'll have to see if I can find those tweets, but I'm pretty sure he deleted them, which is a bummer.
I mean, I would claim that as a win. I mean, it may not have been Tom. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, may not have been Tom Brady, but he was the only one drafted in the first round over all those other quarterbacks. I can't remember. I know Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder. For the life of me, cannot remember who any of the other ones were in that class. Was it Malik Willis? Malik Willis was in that class, wasn't he? Or am I thinking
2 years ago?
Now?
Was that 3? That was 3 years ago, right? It was 3 drafts ago, because the Steelers have in the past couple of drafts taken Fontenot and Broderick Jones, and I think Kenny Pickett was the year before that. I think.
I don't know. My knowledge for the NFL has really, really dipped over the past couple of years.
Mine too, but I still know the Steelers well enough that I could be like, okay, I can work backwards from here, and I think I can piece this together. And Malik Willis was 3 draft classes ago as well, I believe, because they didn't draft Will Levis this year, and they took Will Levis the year after they took Malik Willis. So
was Pickett the COVID year?
No.
Okay, so then that couldn't have been the Ridder Malik class. I'm almost positive they were the COVID year because everybody was sitting at home. Yeah, were they not?
Malik Willis?
Maybe I'm thinking of. I'm just
okay. You know what? We have this really cool thing called the internet at our fingertips. I'm just going to look this up. 2022 was the year that Kenny Pickett was drafted.
Why am I thinking of what quarterbacks? Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi. I'm just mixing up Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis, apparently, because no, he wasn't drafted in that class. Duh. Brock Purdy was clearly the most successful of that draft class.
You know, the college football fantasy podcast genre is already under a lot of scrutiny because of a certain Chris K mixing up a player's race on a show 2 weeks ago, and now you come in here saying that you're confusing 2 black quarterbacks. It's just not a good look for us, man.
No, I love Desmond Ridder. I
know many.
He was one of my favorites. Yeah. I know. I mean, we're practically all best friends. Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. I still haven't listened to that episode yet. I really need to. It's like
I finally listened to it tonight. It's so funny. He says so. If you don't listen to Burning the Red Shirt, you should. It's a good show. They're not
I love it.
Always like super consistent with posting every single week, which is the only downside. But it's usually Chris K and Andrew Katz. And Andrew's so analytical, and he's such a good foil to Chris that it just cracks me up the whole time. Yeah. But Chris, very confidently talking about the UTSA offense for next year, goes, David Amador. He's just one of those like little white guys who isn't very talented that like is really, really good. And then it's like a 2-second pause, and Katz goes, "Is he white?"
Yeah. I am. I'm excited to listen to it. Like I said, I have it queued up for my morning drive tomorrow, so it's going to be excited to laugh a little bit.
There's our BTR shout out. So, and then went on as Cass was researching it to compare him to Joey Hobart. So, yes. So, all right, that's enough of that. All right. So okay. So I think round 3 maybe for Ewers.
Okay.
Probably feels right. So, and you said round 2, but probably day 2. On a larger scale. I think that's where he'll go. Just such a shallow quarterback class that That feels right to me. Carson Beck, kind of the other big quarterback maneuver, pulling what we just said. Could Quinn do this?
Yeah.
Credit for the NFL, and then second year in a row, Miami comes in with some cash and convinces somebody to come back to school. Worked out really, really well this year for Cam Ward. Probably took himself from I would think he probably would have been like a third round guy.
Probably.
Maybe crept into the bottom of round 2, but that's kind of a dead zone for quarterbacks. I think that's where he would have gone. But now, in contention for the top overall pick in the NFL draft. Can that same thing happen for Carson Beck?
I don't think so. I feel like, and maybe this was part of, I think this also could be part of Cam Ward's problem in what he does behind the line of scrimmage, where maybe Carson Beck will just decide where he's going to go with the ball and get rid of it instead of doing the, 50 yards rushing behind the line of scrimmage, but not actually going anywhere kind of thing that he does. So I think that's a very rare thing, like Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray. It's a very rare Patrick Mahomes. There's like a very rare amount of quarterbacks that can do that and make it happen. I don't know that offensive line is going to be as good next year. I don't know what weapons he's going to be thrown to. Was it JoJo Trader, Trey? Oh my God, why am I not remembering his name now all of a sudden? No, I'm thinking of Florida, not Florida. Miami.
You're thinking of Tank Hawkins or whatever his name is.
JoJo Trader.
CJ Daniels came over from LSU, and that's probably the second guy on the team. Like honestly, at this juncture, that's probably the second best receiver.
I don't love that. What they've got, Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyles, so I guess not a bad running back room.
I think that's a good running back room.
The good thing is, I guess, I believe they don't play Clemson next year, and their schedule is fairly easy. So, maybe Beck is able to make something happen with it. But, look, I get it. I feel like, I'm always on the opposite of Felix here. I still have not bought into this Carson Beck hype. I don't think that he's really that good. I think he's a fine quarterback, but I've never viewed him as this top 10 pick that Felix has been talking about him being for the past couple of years. And maybe I'll be wrong on that. I don't think he drastically improves his draft stock going to Miami. I still have concerns about the elbow. I get that. I don't know if he's had, because I saw some people commenting on Felix's video that he didn't get the full Tommy John surgery. So fine, even if he did the Brock Purdy thing, the difference is Brock Purdy never had that strong of an arm. And I feel like that was part of Beck's game where you losing that, how do you adjust to that? I have a lot of concerns about it overall. I think he's probably still going to be a first round pick next year, because I don't think the class is very strong at the moment. Got maybe Sellers, Arch, I think are probably the two you'd view as maybe locked in round 1 picks if Sellers continues to do what he's doing. We got questions about Nico. Drew Allard didn't help himself at all with this playoff run. Maybe he's locked in as a first round pick there, but I don't think he does anything the way Cam Moore. I would be very surprised if he ends up being a top 5 pick because of what he does at Miami this year.
I do think it's easy to say that Drew Allard did not help himself because the last thing that we saw was not particularly good.
Yeah.
But the 3 games prior to that wasn't all the talk that how good he'd looked and he was going to renege on his commitment to come back next year. I know that the last thing that happened sticks in everybody's mind more clearly. And I think it still showed he'll go through stretches, whether it's 3 games might be the longest stretch that I think that he's gone where he's been mistake free and kind of looks like that guy. Usually it's a game, a half, he bumps his head at halftime or something and turns into a different guy and then reverts back during the week. But this is kind of who he's been. And I do think next year's kind of put up or shut up year where you kind of have to show that you can lock in and be that guy all the time.
Yes. So I would say that people were excited about what he did against SMU and Boise State because he had some pretty impressive throws in that. But if you really go look at what he did, I pulled it up because I was trying to remember the 59% completion percentage against SMU, no touchdowns. Now, he did have the 3 touchdowns against Boise State with a 52% completion percentage, 170 yards passing. I don't, against a team that realistically we all thought they would completely dominate, and they didn't. It was a game for a while. Again, I think, not to rehash this, but if Genty doesn't fumble early on and then have some of the issues ahead, that there's a shot Boise State actually beats Penn State. So, I think he was fine, but I don't think he was when everybody was saying first round quarterback, as you just said, like maybe he reneges and goes back. I don't think
it's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
I mean, there was chatter at the time. Yeah. And so real quick, I wanted to answer this. Somebody said Quinn Ewers or Will Levis. I want to say, I think this analogy feels fitting to me. You're in the woods going for a hike and you just feel that gurgle in your belly. No toilet paper. You use your hand or the shirt off your back. That's Quinn Ewers or Will Levis. They both suck. You just got to choose one or the other, and what's going to happen the rest of the day here for you. I mean, the thing that in all seriousness though, I think what the difference that you're betting on is either Will Levis figures it out a little bit, and he's got the tools. Like even if he's never great at reading defenses, he's got the arm to kind of make it happen. So that's what you're hoping for with Levis. Ewers, you're just like he's smart enough that he can kind of work around his limitations physically. So it kind of depends which camp you fall in. I am of the opinion that I wouldn't take either, but if you actually gun to my head, maybe pick one today to start a franchise with next year, I would probably say Levis and just hope that something happens and he figures it out.
I completely disagree. Will Levis is using your hand. Quinn Ewers is like you're walking through the woods and then you see that really like, because toilet paper is made from like wood chips or wood pulp, isn't it?
You're gonna wipe your metaphorical butt with wood
pulp ferns, like really soft. You find just like baby soft ferns. That's what I'm using. That's
Matt would opt for a leaf that turns out to be poison ivy.
I mean, I'm gonna be scratching either way, so might as well just do it, right?
You don't strike me as much of an outdoorsy guy. Is that accurate?
I'm not. No. Oh God, no. Please no. I'll go outside to play sports. No, I've had someone ask me that recently. Like, you want to go camping? I'm like, I'll go. What is it called? Glamping? Like where you're, in like the 5-star RV and everything, and I'll walk outside. Yeah, that's fine. No, not an outdoorsy kind of guy.
Me neither. And my wife's family, her dad's side is all about the camping. So there was some negotiations early on in the relationship as to how much of that I needed to be doing. I swear, like, we could be camping in the middle of the Sahara.
Yeah.
And if I'm there camping, it will pour the entire time somehow. Every time I go camping.
You might get some invitations to head out to the Sahara here soon to go out there and camping. I don't know that they really need.
I am the human embodiment of a rain dance. I swear. If you need rain somewhere, invite me. You pay for me to come out and camp in your backyard or something, and it will rain. I pretty much guarantee it.
No, I get you. My family's the same way. They're all outdoorsy types. And I'm just like, no, there's God created air conditioning for a reason and heating. So,
Exactly. Carson Beck.
Yeah. I forgot what we were talking about with him, but continue. Yes, continue.
Colin and I talked a lot about this. You and I, we both put our doctor hats on at different times. And I don't know that either of us are particularly good at it. But yeah, I mean, my understanding is he'll be ready. At least, from like, you sit there and you kind of go down a checklist. Like, can you do this physically? He'll be ready for day one. But yeah, I don't know. That offense to me last year was more a product of Cam Ward. It was not like this system's so awesome. Like you could put Matt Bruening out there and he would put up, 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns. To me, it was just Cam Ward running around a lot. And Xavier Restrepo pretty much always being open and then just kind of banking on somebody else stepping up at any given time. Like that's kind of what that offense felt to me last year. Losing Martinez, Horton, Arroyo, Restrepo, the other one too. I forgot a receiver, but I mean
they weren't good. It was Restrepo, and
I mean it's slim pickings. I have a hard time believing that he'll better his drafts. Horton? Yeah, Horton. Thank you. Yeah. Unless the NFL has so many questions about his elbow that they're like, we need to see you throw a football again before we'll draft you in any sort of meaningful draft capital. I don't know that he will really elevate his stock next year. And for the record, I am kind of on the Felix train of like people were really crapping on his season last year. I don't think he was as bad as people are saying.
Oh no,
So I don't know that it makes that much sense personally.
I don't think he was that bad. I just don't think he's that good either. I think he's just a good quarterback. Like he's just good. That's it. My biggest thing is I doubt that I doubt that NFL teams came to him and said, well, because of your elbow, like, we're not going to draft you. My guess is the reason he went back is because he wasn't getting good draft grades. And then he was offered whatever was $4 million by Miami. So it's fine. I'll go back and I'll prove it again. I think there's a realistic shot that we've seen the best of Carson Beck at this point, and we're not going to see it at Miami.
I mean, does Carson Beck already have a degree too?
Probably.
Georgia doesn't really. Stetson Bennett was there how many years and didn't get a degree, so I don't want to assume that anybody that was at Georgia that was an athlete for any length of time has a degree. But with the way they do academic eligibility, this just screams like go make $4 million, hang out with my girlfriend, and just like smoke a bunch of weed or whatever for like 3 months, and then go to the NFL. That is what this screams to me. And maybe I'm just completely wrong on that. I don't know if he smokes weed. So
I was about to say the only thing I don't know is that part. I think the rest of it sounds great. I don't know about that part.
That's what it feels like, right? Like, so.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, dude's making $4 million, drives a Lambo, going to Miami. Like, it doesn't sound like a bad gig. Hold a clipboard here and there. You know what? Well, this probably just says more about me than Carson Beck. If I show up to Miami like that, dude's obviously in great shape. I'm walking around shirtless everywhere I go. At this point, probably just holding a clipboard and collecting my $4 million. Like, guys, my elbow. It's not working, and just collect my money, hang out at the beach, hang out with my girlfriend, live life.
And there's like a 2% chance that happens. I mean, I don't know Carson Beck between the ears at all.
Yeah.
I know just based on the Snapchat stuff that I've seen floating around.
That's not great.
The guy is driven by at least one thing. I will give him that.
True.
But I don't know like the passion for football. Like, I think we kind of knew Cam Ward could go there and lock in. Like, I just have some doubts that Carson Beck can do that. And I am trying to make sure that I'm not just saying that because of how dopey he looks, because I think that's such a tired narrative. I hate that people, make fun of how he looks. I don't think he's that bad looking of a guy, like objectively. Like, yeah, he looks unusual, but like,
I think that's the nicest way to put it. Oh, we'll leave it at that. He looks unusual. I mean, look, I forgot
all looks unusual. That. We love him.
No, he did. No. Colin is amazing, and I will never say anything other than that ever since my one comment on him.
The butt chin.
No, that was actually pretty funny though. No,
that was really funny.
What was I was actually telling someone about the story the first time I met Colin when we pulled up to the expo and him and his brother were standing back to back, and I thought Colin was a skinny one, and they turned around and the whole car heard me go, "Colin's fat." It was a whole thing. I had no idea. But no, now that you remind me of the Snapchat thing, I don't think Miami's the greatest place to go.
No.
That's gonna but more power to him again. $4 million, Lambo. We're probably about to see a lot more Snapchat stories pop up.
Yeah.
Go live your life.
That's why I assume that he didn't have like a girlfriend, nor that he was obviously pulling the Cavender twins into this story, because I feel like I've been seeing those like new ones of them pop up until very recently. So I'm just not exactly sure.
The C2C dating pod. Let's dive into Carson Beck and these Snapchat stories.
Well, we're big, like, well, I don't watch anymore. That show's gotten old, but like Love is Blind and all that. Like so we had always talked about that behind the scenes. So
I haven't watched any. I don't remember the last season I watched. I think it was the Dallas one, whatever that was, like season 3 or 4. It's been a while since I've watched it.
It became very apparent that just the shittiest dregs of this country were trying to go on that show to make a quick buck. Like after the first couple seasons, and maybe even the first, season or two, but the novelty of it was enough for me to overlook it. I don't know, but
very true.
How much, we're 28 minutes and 58 seconds into this. How much of this is a discussion of Quinn Ewers and
football talk? We probably discussed about 5 minutes football. The rest of this has been attorneys, dating. This is a pod of the year. This is the one that's going to get nominated for Sports Podcast Awards.
People are probably going to send us messages because it's so funny that sometimes you'll get like, that's like the best show you guys have done in forever. I have a feeling we're going to get a couple of those messages. I hope it doesn't upset Felix too much.
I think Felix will enjoy it. That's more the other people. I'm sure we're going to get some of those bad messages. I just want to hear about football. So that's coming. At least Chris isn't on here giving political takes. That's the one thing saving us right now.
Or how much? Yeah, Chris hates America and Matt likes Ohio State way too much.
Yeah,
those are the negative reviews that we've gotten over the years, essentially.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk the 10 most impactful moves that have happened so far in the transfer portal. Before we do that, guys, again, if you can like the video, subscribe here to the channel, turn those notifications on. We have videos coming out pretty much daily. I know, Matt, you've really been on that lately. Covering the gamut on college football, college fantasy, recruiting, all of that good stuff. Head on over to Home Field Apparel, guys. Use our promo code Campus, the number 2 Canton, get you 15% off your first purchase over there. And then Underdog, we do have a promo code with them. Promo code C2C gets you a deposit match up to $250. And I will say, you just head over to campus2canton.com too. If you are a college football fan who follows us and has never really given any sort of college fantasy or college fantasy adjacent, fantasy formats a try, I don't think there's ever really been a better time. I mean, I really do think that there's more and more places covering it. Access to information is getting easier and easier. So I think, make 2025, make that your New Year's resolution. Try one of these leagues out, and we have everything that you need to do that for as low as $2.99 a month, $29.99 per year. So head on over to campus2canton.com and check all that out. All right. Our 10 most impactful moves in the transfer portal. Full disclosure, I did not realize that this was the topic for tonight until about 10 minutes before the show. So, but I feel like I've put together a bang up list. But I'll let you go first, Matt. How about you start with 10?
Sure.
We'll work backwards to 1 and go over your top 10. This is from a fantasy perspective. So we don't care about some defensive tackle that's going to your favorite school. We don't care. Sorry.
Yeah. Wait, so just to clarify, you want me to do my whole list or just start at 10?
Start at 10. Yeah, we'll see how many actual discussions we have about some of these guys.
So at 10 for me, I have Zachariah Branch. I still have some questions about what he'll be able to do at Georgia. We've been fans of Gunnar Stockton since he went there, and I think that, Gunnar Stockton is a guy who'll be able to get the ball down the field to him. My biggest fear is, again, I know you and Colin touched on it a little bit on Campus Life a couple of weeks ago. It's like, I don't even remember the last time Georgia's had even a 1,000-yard receiver, much less a 900-yard receiver on the season. Zachariah Branch still, I think, struggles with some of the nuances of the wide receiver game, and I don't know if that's going to get developed at Georgia. So I'm curious to see how that works. But if it does work, that gives Georgia a weapon they really haven't had in the past couple of years. And I think he's more explosive than even was Anaya Smith that was there a couple of years ago, or he was there last year.
No, Arian Smith,
dropping touchdowns left and right. Like, I think that it will give that offense a different level of threat to it if he's able to get it going. So he is my 10. At 9, I have Devin Dampier going over to Utah. I know Chris and Jared talked a little bit about that on Chasing the Natty.
They did. Did you listen to that? I was interested to hear if you had, because they seemed to be a little bit skeptical, as am I, about any guy coming up from a lower level to a higher level.
Yeah. So I think Chris was more skeptical than Jared was. And I actually kind of leaned toward Jared, where I think Whittingham's been in the game for a long time, and he's done it one way. And let's be honest, it's been successful. Utah for the past decade has been.
I disagree with that.
You don't think he's been successful?
No, I disagree that he has a way. He's not like this old school guy that just wants to run the ball 50 times.
Oh, no, yeah. No, but he's more about defense and I'm trying to remember. I don't feel like they ever really let people throw around besides Cam Rising. They did let Cam Rising kind of do his thing, even running the ball.
Who is the Ravens backup right now?
Oh God, is it not I forgot what his name is.
Didn't he go to wasn't he the Utah kid? Utah had a guy that I'm pretty sure that's who it was, who was a runner, could do a lot of they kind of let him cook a little bit. So I don't know that Whittingham's we're gonna make sure that you limit, we're not gonna let you throw the ball past 12 yards down the field to limit potential turnovers. And I don't know that he is locked into that per se, even though I think he does have that perception from the outside.
Josh Johnson? No, Tyler Huntley. Was it Tyler Huntley?
Yeah. It was Huntley, wasn't it? Wasn't he at Utah?
Okay. All right. I don't remember. All I can remember is Trace McSorley and him being at Penn State. Yeah. That's the only one. I don't think he's there anymore. Okay. So, but again, I think him coming over with his offensive coordinator, I think Whittingham is practically giving him the keys to that car and saying, hey, I'm going to let you run this however you want. Because we know Whittingham is more of a defensive guy. He's going to let him kind of run this ways. And I get it. Yes, Dampier coming up from the G5, especially Mox made some good points. New Mexico was like, I mean, New Mexico's defense could not stop anything. I think me, you, Colin, and Felix go out there and at least score a touchdown on that defense. It was that bad. Obviously joking. If any New Mexico defensive players are listening to this, just a joke. But I mean, so I don't think that will necessarily, like, he won't get that many chances, but I think Devin Dampier is just that good of a player. And Utah, I think, is a team that's going to want to try and compete and win the Big 12. And so I mean, with his rushing upside again, they let Rising do that. And you mentioned Huntley. Huntley, the same thing. Like, Devin Dampier can do that. I think Devin Dampier is a better athlete than Cam Rising. So they actually let him run at times. Sure, maybe he won't bring you like some of the passing upside you would want. But again, rushing, I think he's a very interesting fantasy quarterback. What did he finish? He finished top 5 this year, I believe. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still not a top 15 quarterback next year.
Yeah, very that could happen. I'm generally, I will just say, it's funny because I think when I was listening to that discussion, Chris is generally a pessimist and Jared is generally an optimist, and I think you're generally an optimist and I'm generally a pessimist, because I sat there kind of leaning more toward Chris Moxley's approach, which was it's really hard to bet on an undersized guy who, in my opinion, doesn't have. He's got, he's an excellent runner, but I wouldn't say the arm is anything amazing. So from a passing perspective, I don't know how good those tools are exactly. Taking a big step up, like New Mexico is like, I don't know, a bottom 10 program in the country ish, roughly. Going up to Utah, I don't know that the wide receivers there are going to be particularly good. They lose Keithy, right? He doesn't know his eligibility left.
No, he's out.
They did bring in somebody, but they lost like Dorian Singer. They lost Mikey Matthews 2 years ago. Like, they've kind of had like fringy talent, but I don't think they have a lot of it there right now. I don't trust it. Would it shock me? Like, shock me if he has a pretty solid year? I don't think it would shock me.
Yeah.
But I'm just not really a believer for now. I think if I have him and I could ship him off, I probably would. I don't know what you could get for him. If you were buying, what would you offer to me, the ever, the skeptic?
I think probably, I don't know, a 10th round supplemental, maybe.
And see, I think I would just roll the dice and hope that he's worth more than that. But
it's possible. I don't know. I mean, I just want everybody to be happy. That's it. That's just, that's all. But so those 9 and 10 at 8, Kewan Lacey. I mean, obviously disappointed last year. Really thought there was a shot that he was going to be able to at least get some decent amount of carries at Missouri. But you guys kind of talked about this with I forgot for the life of me right now who the freshman is that they're bringing in to Ole Miss that you.
Oh, Shakai Mills-Knight.
Yeah.
I really like.
Yeah. Well, but you talked about how like Lane Kiffin is not afraid to use those guys, the younger guys. I mean, they did it with Quinshawn as a true freshman. And what we also saw throughout this last year is that he pumped up Ulysses Bentley a ton. Like, Lane Kiffin loved the way Bentley played. I think that they could use both of those guys, whether it's Mills. I know they brought somebody else in from the portal, but I think it was like from the G5 or something like that. It's Jordan something.
It's not somebody who's particularly good.
Yeah. I think with how explosive Lacey is, and then just the way that Mills Knight is as well, like, I think both those guys could be really good. But again, I just think Lacey is such an explosive running back. And if he gets into open space, like, he's going to be able to score a ton of points. I think he's going to end up being the starter for Ole Miss. So for me, he's kind of like one of the sneaky, I think, top 10 moves there. Because again, Lane Kiffin, you go back even to why I can't remember who it is now, back to his time. Oh my goodness! Why can
USC?
I not remember?
Tennessee?
No, maybe it was Tennessee.
Alabama?
It was probably Ole Miss, but who was they had the two backs back then too. It was Snoop Connor and somebody else, and they both used
Jerry O'Neilly.
Yeah, Jerry O'Neilly, who also smaller back, who was really good. He was also a baseball prospect. Like, Lane Kiffin can get a lot out of those smaller guys, and I think Kewan Lacey.
Is Kewan Lacey a smaller guy? He's like 200 pounds, isn't he?
I think barely. I could be wrong.
So Jordan Simmons is the other guy that came over from Akron, and Kewan Lacey on 24/7 is listed at 5'11", 196. Jerry Neely was like 175. So
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but still, like, explosive running backs that I think he can get the most out of. So Keywan Lacy comes in there as my number 8. 9, talked about it on the show when it happened. I thought
kind of numbering figuration you got.
Oh, sorry, 7. I'm sorry. I'm so used to going down. At 7, Darian Mensah going to Duke. And I love that Jared brought it up on there too. They threw the ball a ton last year, and I think they're going to do it again. And I think all the points that Jared made on chasing the natty are exactly correct. Darian Mensah, I think, just overall better quarterback. Showed better average depth per throw, better completion percentage. Like, as long as they let him throw that. Now, I don't know. I do kind of agree with Chris Moxley. I don't know that Mensah gets like over 4,000 yards passing at Duke because I do worry about the receiving weapons. But I think overall Mensah is a massive upgrade over Malik Murphy, and I think has a chance to be I would say top 36 to 40 quarterback, and is a guy that everybody's writing off because he's going to Duke, and they just think he's going to be horrible. I disagree with that statement completely. I think he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah, I think the situation in terms of the coaching staff's preferences surprised me quite a bit. What I will say, not every quarterback gets better when you ask them to go from throwing 287 times to upwards of 400. And I haven't watched a lot of Mensah. I watched maybe 2 Tulane games this past year. Mensah kind of strikes me as the guy that maybe would not necessarily retain his efficiency making that kind of jump. That's 8 more passing attempts a game ish. 8 to 10. I don't know. I don't know that you necessarily want him doing that. Not to say that I think he's bad or anything. I don't know. I didn't watch him and think like I want that guy to just uncork it 450 times next season. I don't know what he's throwing to.
Yeah, that's the biggest concern, I think.
So, and I will say I disagreed a little bit with the math that was done on that show in terms of just assuming that his yards per attempt and will just transfer over, and that so Murphy's weren't a product of the system. Like I think that tends to honestly be more of the case a lot of the time. So I think Malik Murphy stinks, for the record. I think he's terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think he had these really somewhat inflated stats last year. He was not good last year if you watched any Duke, in my opinion. So
he didn't have inflated stats. That's the whole point. The dude threw 400 times and didn't even get 3,000 passing yards. I believe he's at like 2,700. Yeah. But that's my point. Like, even if Mensah doesn't get to 400, let's say he goes to 350-ish. Like, I think he's a talented enough quarterback that it's not a massive step up from Tulane to Duke playing in the ACC, as I think they avoid Clemson next year as well. So, like, it's
who does Clemson play?
Probably
who does Clemson play next year? Apparently they play nobody. Apparently it's 12 buys, and we'll see.
Oh, look, I could be wrong. I'm gonna lie. I just pulled that right out of my what. I just assumed Duke doesn't play them, but Duke 2025 football. So we're doing a lot of just like internet searches on the show today. Duke's 2025 schedule. Nope, they play Clemson right in the middle of the schedule. But that's it. That's the only hard defense. Illinois usually has a pretty good defense. So Illinois
brings back like everything next year.
Yeah,
like almost the entire roster, or at least like the guys that played actual football.
But you know what? I'm sticking to my guns.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, the rest of the schedule is not tough. I think Georgia Tech will be decent. I think they're building something.
Fighting for a playoff spot with Darian Mensah at quarterback in 2025 with only 1 to 2 losses. We'll see.
Watch out for the Elon Phoenix that they take on in week 1. My brother-in-law played baseball at Elon, actually. A little known
nice.
Fact. Yes.
Did you play with Chris K? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. He's much younger than Chris K. Sorry, Chris.
Oh, I wouldn't know. I don't know. Chris looks like a young guy outside of his weird workout habits. Youngish guy, which we don't have to get into on this show. Inside joke.
I'm 32. I'm pretty sure he's a couple years older than me. And my brother-in-law is like 2.5 years younger than me. So I think there's like a 5-year age gap between the two of them.
I did not realize Chris K was closer to me in age than he was.
I'm pretty sure. Now I'm the one saying insensitive stuff that I don't actually know on this show. And he's going to be
Chris,
like, you jerk.
You look 24 years old. We'll put it that way. So make everybody happy. All right. Next.
So he has, at the risk of blowing up his spot, he has like recruiting profiles online
He
from
does. Yeah,
his baseball
his
days.
college
We
stats, I
could
believe, online,
we
right?
could figure out his age pretty easily.
Well,
I'm
you
pretty
do
sure.
that. I'll talk
Okay,
about Mekhi
you
Hughes.
talk. I'm looking up Chris K's baseball high school scouting profile.
Darian Mintz's teammate, running back, going to Oregon, correct? I'm not like misremembering that now. All I'm thinking about is Chris K being superstar
Yeah,
baseball prospect.
Yeah, this past week, I think.
Obviously, I think that's a great landing spot for Mekhi Hughes. I think he could easily be considered one of the best CFF running backs next year with the way Oregon runs the ball. I know, just what is it? We don't know who the quarterback will be currently. I still think it's going to be Dante Moore. I have some questions about what that wide receiver group will look like. Obviously, Evan Stewart coming back. They'll get to Corian Moore, who I think both those guys will be good, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't lean heavily on Mekhi Hughes at times. So I think he's just a smash kind of top 10 guy for the transfer portal this year. That's my 6. 5, I've got Haas Hejny going to Oklahoma State. I love this spot. I know, Jared and Chris seemed a little bit more down on this on the Chasing the Natty episode. Like, he's such a good I think he doesn't have the arm strength that Avery Johnson has, but I think at times he is a better passer than Avery Johnson.
There's a different comp that I would make for him, by the way, because they kept talking about Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
To me, coming out of high school, I don't think he was that indistinguishable from a size and play style perspective from DeMond Williams, who, I mean, we liked DeMond a tiny bit more, but Haney was another guy that we were much higher than the services on. Yep. We have really good athletic numbers for him, undersized, like, can they get to the NFL? I think that we had like almost the same exact questions for them. I don't think DeMond might have like a tiny bit of a bigger arm, but DeMond Williams doesn't have a cannon to my recollection. Yeah. I think one of Haney's things was like he was like slightly below average in terms of velocity in our database. So that's the comp I would make over Avery Johnson, who's like this big, lanky, runs like a deer, 6'3". Like I don't know that, like I know what they were trying to say, but I think you don't have to look that much further than a guy that was in his class, DeMond Williams, to kind of get a feel for what he could potentially do, assuming that they'll let him do that.
Yeah, I want to say DeMond was like in the 55 to 56 range and Hejny was like 52. So like it wasn't a massive difference, but it was like he was a little bit below the average, which is like that 53 to 55 range. But yeah, I don't mind that comp at all. And again, I think he's just such a good athlete that he's going to bring, I think, a lot of fantasy upside if Mike Gundy just kind of lets him loose. I would be very surprised if he's not the starting quarterback day one. And just to even go with the DeMond Williams thing that me and Felix always talk about, if he's the starter day one for Oklahoma State, that's like a team I want to watch every single week because I think he's just going to be one of those players you love watching. So he was a big get for me. We loved him. We hated the landing spot at TCU just from the fact that Josh Hoover was there, and we thought Josh Hoover could be the guy, and he was going to be there for multiple years. And we all said, hey, if Hejny just gets the job somewhere, he's going to be exciting. So I do love this landing spot for him. At 4, I have Fernando Mendoza. I mean, Cignetti's been able to get the best out of his quarterbacks, and I think it's this easy thing to talk about here is Mendoza's the best quarterback he's ever had. And I obviously they bring back Surratt. They brought Roman Hemby in from the portal at running back to replace whoever it was that just
they lost all their running backs essentially. I'm pretty sure Justice Ellison I think is gone. I forget who the second back is. I think he's gone. They lost Cross and Price at wide receiver. They bring in Mekhi Jackson as well.
I think so. But I mean, Indiana's schedule doesn't get much more difficult next year. I think, like Chris talked about it this year, they were running up the score. I think they'll do that again next year too. And Fernando Mendoza, again, I think is by far the best quarterback he has ever had. So I think it's a great landing spot for him. I don't know that this like bumps up his draft capital in a major way, but like from a fantasy perspective, I think he has a chance to be really good because I think he's a lot better than Curtis Rourke. At 3, I have Deshaun Stribling going to Ole Miss. I know Colin loves Caden Lee over there right now, but I think Stribling probably is the guy who slides more into like that Trey Harris role. Obviously, the quarterback thing is going to be interesting because I know I did a video about Ole Miss recently, and everybody kind of said they think, it really seems like Austin Simmons is like locked in to be the guy for Ole Miss fans. I wouldn't quite rule out Pierce Clarkson. I think he's definitely at a disadvantage going over there because Simmons was the backup most of the year to Jackson Dart, did get in a couple times, so he knows the system. But Pierce Clarkson is a really good quarterback in his own right. But I think Simmons is probably going to be the guy. Stribling going over, I think, is probably the wide receiver 1. And then my 2 and 1 are 2 running backs. Number 2, Quentin Joyner going to Texas Tech. I mean, if we're just talking about him sliding into the Taj Brooks production, he's more explosive than Brooks in a massive way. Like, I think we're talking about a guy who could be top 5 in CFF next year if they use him that way. If they use him the way that they use Taj Brooks. I don't know that he's the physical runner that Brooks could be at times, but I still think, like, receiving wise, explosive threat, he could be really good for Texas Tech.
Joyner to me seems like such like a Rorschach test, kind of, in terms of, yeah, he was pretty good at USC last year and fairly limited action, especially compared to the Jaquavius Marks, who was getting the majority of the touches there. Is he significantly better than Jacoby Williams and Cameron Dickey?
I think so.
I don't know that he is. Significantly kind of being the key word there. And I think it's going to be really interesting all offseason to kind of see where people rank these guys and if people are making the assumption that he's just going to be the guy that slots right into that role, because I don't know. I don't know that that's a given. I think the other guys there are talented enough, and they've been there. And for a running back, I think it matters a little bit less. You're kind of, they know where the play is kind of supposed to go, and from there, they'll figure it out. But I don't know. I kind of like, there's this voice in the back of my head that says Joyner is not, like, quote unquote the guy, the undisputed number 1 there. I'll be interested because I'm sure this will be a heavily litigated item all offseason. The BTR guys were talking about it this week already. I'm sure plenty of other people will as well. So I'll be interested to kind of see where people have him ranked.
I mean, that's fair. I guess I would look at it as you knew, or you had a pretty good assumption you were going to be the guy at USC. And it's a step down. You went from USC to Texas Tech. I don't know why you would do that if you weren't guaranteed to be the starter. So I'll be curious to see how that works out.
I don't want to put too much also into leaving USC thing, because it seemed like everyone was trying to get the heck out off season. So on both sides of the ball, but really all the offensive skill guys. I mean, they lose their quarterback. Maybe Mayava had a stranglehold on that job right now, whatever. But they lose Miller Moss, they lose Zach Branch, they lose Deuce Robinson, they lose him. They lost a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the ball as well. You can talk about whether Bear Alexander is actually a loss or not. But like they lost quite a bit. So they lost their best offensive lineman, who went to Oregon. That's a double kick to the nuts. I don't know that I want to put that much in, like, he left us a place. Like, it seems like a lot of them liked Miller Moss. Miller Moss must be a really cool dude. I want to hang out. I want to do like a weekend somewhere with Miller, like in a lake house with Miller Moss, and just hang out with him. He seems like he's a bro's bro apparently. But all these guys wanted to play with him.
Yeah, I mean, I must have been throwing some pretty I was going to be like really old, some pretty rad ragers or something.
Some pretty banging parties, yeah.
But no, I
Ragers.
just look. Here's the thing, you know who led that room last year? One Mekhi Lemon, and he stayed. That's all that matters to me. Number 1.
I think that's going to be really interesting to watch this year.
Number 1
and Jacoby Lane, and they just got somebody else too who's like really similar to Jacoby Lane, didn't they?
I don't know. All that matters is Mekhi Lemon. That's all I care about. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, I don't disagree. It seemed like everybody wanted to get out, and even old teammates that left like a year or two ago were kind of all hinting at that and talking about, people needing to leave and all that other stuff. So, or that it was a good thing that they were leaving. And then my number 1 is Justice Haynes going to that team up north. I mean, look, I was excited for Jordan Marshall. Felt really bad for our boy Colin after spending like a whole hour and a half doing a solo show. And then at the end of the show, I hyped up Jordan Marshall, and then Justice Haynes transfers in like a day later. But I think realistically, if they give him the ball, this is a perfect fit for that offense. Having a guy like Bryce Underwood, assuming he's the QB1 from day one, like, I think Justice Haynes has a shot to realistically jump up and be the RB1 next year, even with a guy like Nicholas Singleton coming back. I think just with Haynes' overall game and the way that he plays the running back position, right? I mean, I get Nicholas Singleton's an incredible athlete, but still kind of doesn't have like the vision, the patience, just kind of goes. Justice Haynes with everything he does at the running back position. And again, Mike Valerie talks about this all the time. Michigan and that offensive line that they have that typically blocks things up very well and makes average running backs look good. I think that makes a really good running back look amazing. And I think that's what happens for Haynes next year.
After this season, although the Rams are obviously still playing, we feel pretty good about our takes on Blake Corum, right? Most of us, Colin being the only one who maybe doesn't feel so good about it at this point. But we were not Blake Corum fans.
Bad players are drafted early all the time. Look at Michael Penix going number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. Zach Wilson, number 2.
Zach Wilson. That's the big one. We're not going to talk about Justin Fields.
He's been good. Cleveland trade for him.
I would be down for that if they plan to go into next year with Justin Fields as a starter. I'd be ecstatic. Signed a Steelers.
The Steelers or the Browns? I mean, can't be any worse
for the Browns
than
to take them.
Can't be any worse than what's his name? I forgot. The old UCLA
Jameis
quarterback.
Mr.
Crableg is gone. He ain't coming back next year. No, it used to be UCLA's quarterback. I for life of me can't remember his name.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah. DTR. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Give me Justin Fields all day. He just needs to be in Ohio. That's all he needs. All right. That's where he succeeds.
If you had given me like an over-under number on how many games DTR would have started in his NFL career, it would not have been as high as he's gone so far. And I don't know how many more he'll start because he's never looked particularly good. Yeah. But good for him, I guess. So he's a really fascinating character. He didn't basically play at all in high school because he was behind Tate Martell for like his first 3 years. I think he only started as a senior.
Good old Tate.
I think he was a Bishop Gorman guy. Is that where he went? I think is where him and Tate Martell went.
Was he?
I forget. But
I thought Tate played in Florida.
Oh, then maybe I'm wrong about who he backed up, but I'm 98% sure that Dorian Thompson-Robinson played 1 year of high school football.
Go to DTR. Top search for Tate Martell because he never succeeded anywhere else. Nope. Yep. Bishop Gorman. Tate Martell did play Bishop Gorman. You are correct.
Huh. Yeah.
He transferred to Bishop Gorman after that.
So yeah, I mean, it's he barely played and then he sat for a while in college or whatever, and fascinating story there. All right,
hang on, really quick.
Yes.
Has anybody done less to get 2-time Big Ten champion, Cotton Bowl champion, Rose Bowl champion? I assume this was in high school, offensive player of the year, because I don't ever remember him doing anything.
There's no way he achieved that in college.
No, there's no way.
We're talking Tate?
Yeah, Tate. Yeah. I forgot that he transferred to Miami and then did nothing, and then transferred to UNLV and did nothing. Opted out due to COVID. Yeah.
He hung around for forever.
Yeah. 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah. Good for him. All right. So I have an honorable mention. I just went to Taven Jackson.
Oh,
yeah. Headed to UCF, I think could be really, really interesting there. They don't really have anything. We kind of talked about that. They tried all the backup options last year that they have there. None of them were particularly good. So Taven Jackson coming from Indiana, I think could cook there. Didn't have in my top 10 just because I think we're a C2C show. We're kind of also focusing on NFL future. DTR might be the best possible outcome for a guy like Taven Jackson.
Yeah.
So at least based on what we've seen so far. Number 10, I have Fernando Mendoza. I have him a little bit lower than you.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we're going to learn about him at Indiana. And I know, for the record, I will say he is probably the most talented quarterback that Kurt Cignetti's ever had. Some guys are just like good college quarterbacks. Curtis Rourke is a good college quarterback. So Mendoza is more talented than him, but there's just these guys that are really good in college. And then obviously there's not real NFL hope. And that's kind of one of the cool things about C2C is you can profit, quote unquote profit, off of some of these guys. Tim Tebow is kind of a classic example of guys that just kind of were made for college. And so I don't want to take away from Like he might not do better than Rourke from a production standpoint this year.
Yeah.
So I will just toss that out there. I think the expectation is like, well, he's, in our minds, 40% more talented than Curtis Rourke. So we should expect, 20 to 30% more output. I don't know that's necessarily the case. So I do just want to toss that out there. Talking about him. Is Elijah Sherratt return to Indiana? He is. Yeah. He'll be there next year. So, he will have him to throw to. So we'll see. Number 9 for me, Chase Sal, wide receiver, headed to Iowa State there. He, at least, from the outside looking in, just feels like a perfect guy to plug into that tall, kind of versatile guy that they lean on in that offense every year there under Campbell. So I think he's really a perfect fit there. I think he's going to blossom and be really, really good. And I mean, I think the jump from ECU to Iowa State will certainly help him when the draft comes calling. So, I'm not saying he's a first or second round guy or anything, but if he plays well at Iowa State, you're talking about a guy that might have been a 7th round guy to maybe gets up in 3rd, 4th round. So a win all around there if you're a Chase Sal holder or a Chase Sal stan. Number 8, I have 2 players. I have Luke Haas and Max Klar, tight ends. I kind of package them together because I don't have a lot to say about either of them, but it's just guys leaving suboptimal situations for places where I think they can potentially really shine. Haas headed to Ole Miss, Max Klar headed to Ohio State. Not that Ohio State leans on the tight end a lot. I will never. When I edit the freshman guide, I go through all of the ones that Matt has written and delete out the.
And then I go in and add it in some of them.
I always am the final person who gets to look at it. So maybe I don't catch all of them, but
I'm pretty sure in the Devin Brown one, there was a couple of them that I was able to sneak back in. There's a few every once in a while.
I won't be able to sleep tonight knowing that. So I think that will work out better for both of them. And I think both can launch themselves into 2nd, 3rd round discussion. I think Klar in particular is kind of underrated. I think he's an interesting player. He's just produced every time he's been healthy, and he's a pretty decent athlete too. Justice Haynes, for the same reasons you listed, I'm a little lower on the, impact overall, but maybe I should have him higher because, another year of Alabama, I don't know what his stock would have been, but as we all kind of talked, but bump him way up there. 10, 9, 8, 7. So 6 and 5. I don't know if I counted correctly, whatever. Berrien Brown and Zachariah Branch, I lumped them together because I think for both of these players, we need to figure out if their limitations so far from a usage perspective are their fault or situation fault.
Yeah.
And I think we will figure that out. I think we'll figure it out about Berrien Brown really quickly. By week 2 or 3, we will know whether Berrien Brown's issues have been Berrien Brown related.
Yeah.
Really specifically, I think there is a good route runner in there. Not great. I don't think he has to be great with how athletic he is for the record, but I think there is, snappy out of his breaks, explosive, can dip those hips and really create separation out of, at the top of routes through breaks, things like that. We just really haven't seen it, but how much, they didn't really use him in a super sophisticated way either at Kentucky. When I think of sophisticated offenses, I really don't think of Kentucky at all. So just not what they wanted to do. So we'll figure it out because I think LSU will move him around, ask him to do a bunch of different stuff. And if they're not, then I think we know that there's some limitations here. And then I think the same for Branch. He's been mostly a guy around the line of scrimmage. And I think I'm hopeful Georgia will ask him to work deep too, because they don't really have another guy on the roster right now that can do that. I mean, I guess London Humphreys is a bit of a deep guy, but he didn't really play at all and wasn't good this year. I don't know that they really have serious plans for him. So
so you really only going to give, I don't know how to word this question. I think I would give Berrien Brown a little bit more grace because I don't trust Joe Sloan. If Mike Denbrock was still there as the offensive coordinator, then I think I would be that quick to cut bait on Berrien Brown. But I just don't think Joe Sloan's that good. So I don't know that he would even be able to get the best out of Berrien Brown anyways.
I don't want to say cut bait because I haven't crushed him in my rankings, but I am effectively, I think, below market to the point where if I did 10 startups this offseason, I probably wouldn't really end up with any of him unless he slid a decent amount. I had him as a tier 1, the 5-star equivalent coming out of high school in my rankings. I loved the athleticism, the speed. I think even the build is not that problematic in today's NFL. Like he's tall enough that it really isn't that worrisome. And I do think he can be a dangerous returner, although I don't know that the return game is what it was. Like, I don't know that the value on that is, you'd get the return that you would have if he came into the league 10 years ago or whatever. So I don't know that that's going to buoy him onto an NFL roster, higher up the depth chart. I don't know. I don't know. He looks just so lackadaisical as a player, and that's not how he really looked in high school, in my opinion. So I just don't has he been beaten down by 3 years in Lexington, essentially?
That's what I was about to say.
Maybe. 3 years with,
Brock Vandegrift.
This past year with Vandegrift and Cutter Bowley, and before that, you will
Will Levis, and I always forget who the one was in between. We all had
it was a kid from NC State, Devin Leary.
Devin Leary. I always forget his name. Yeah. We all had such high hopes, and then I'd be beaten down too. Yeah. So did I. I thought it was a great landing spot for him, and just did not work out.
No, not at all. So I think we'll see on either of those guys. I do have Haas Haney number 3 for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. I do think he can be just I think though that, and I'd be interested to see. I don't want to say that Gundy isn't willing to do this because he has such an aggressive, at least traditionally, like his teams have been so aggressive downfield.
Yeah.
But I think if you are using Haas Haney, you just have to be like, go. Yeah. Unleash. This is like a snarling dog on a lead in your yard on a chain, and somebody's walking by, and you just undo the clip, and you're like, yeah, whatever's about to happen, here's about to happen. I think that's kind of what you have to do with a player like him, because he's just so he's chaos personified, essentially. So, will Gundy let him do that? Or maybe he needs to be reined in a little bit. Maybe they'll have a happy marriage and meet somewhere in the middle. But that doesn't strike me necessarily as the kind of player that Haas Haney is at this point.
The thing is, they've had quarterbacks who've run in the past.
They have.
It's not like what Spencer Sanders was not I'm almost positive he had a decent amount of rushing attempts and rushing yards back in the day. And look, let's not comparing Spencer Sanders athletically to Haas Haney is like comparing Felix to me. It's just not in the same realm, In my favor, I'm Haas Haney.
Obviously.
Comparison. So, no, I'm trying to remember who else. I'm almost positive Spencer Sanders had some pretty good rushing years. I don't remember. I'm trying to think back. I can't really remember.
I'm trying to pull up my Haas Haney scouting report from high school real quick. I just want to see, because my recollection of him. Okay, so this is the first sentence. Haas Haney is going to be the next chaotic, undersized quarterback that takes over a mid-sized college football program. Literally,
well, there you go.
First, he's not a guy that I remember watching a lot of him in the pocket and just being there he's working his reads. Look at him go. He's first thing's not there. We're running. We'll figure this out as we go. Johnny Manziel kind of stylistically is kind of what we're talking about here. Is really, I think, the comp that we tossed around a lot of the time. And obviously we're emphasis on light. We're not predicting one of the most fascinating Heisman runs of all time for this kid. But
I think mentally Haas Haney's a little bit more there than Johnny Manziel. So
I would hope. It'd be hard to not be.
What was the he did an interview lately. This show's been completely off the rails since the beginning, so I'm just going to go with this. Who was interviewing him?
He did a documentary recently.
Yeah, I watched that. It was horrible.
Oh, well, that's not what you're talking about. There was nothing. You learned nothing from that.
Yeah, he did an interview recently with someone and was talking about, because I forgot that his offensive coordinator, who is Jake Spavital, I forgot that was Jake Spavital for him when he was at Texas A&M. Yeah, it was. So apparently, he talks about it in the interview, is Spavital went to Sumlin and said, hey, look at what we've done with the offense. I deserve a raise. And Sumlin laughed in his face and told him to get out. So he left. And I think he went to West Virginia after that. I don't remember where he went after that. Maybe it was West Virginia before Texas A&M, but he moved on. And then apparently, according to this interview, Johnny Manziel's dad went into Kevin Sumlin and asked for $2 million or $10 million or something like that for him to come back He's like, I'll come back and stay for 2 more years if you pay me this under the table. And Kevin Sumlin laughed at him. And then they started, what's his name, the year after, were just god awful. And I think if Manziel would have stayed Texas A&M, it probably would have been pretty good. So it's just an interesting story. I forgot who interviewed him, but it was recently.
Interesting. I had not heard that anecdote. I'll have to see if I can dig that up and find it.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. All right. Number 2, Mekhi Hughes. You kind of mentioned it, but I do think that he's a talented enough player that can go 2nd or 3rd round in the NFL if he plays well at Oregon. And I think he will. I mean, there's not a lot else there. I think Whittington is back.
Yeah.
But he's, very much a complimentary back. I don't know that they have any intention of leaning on Noah Whittington next year. And other than that, we talked a little bit on Campus Life this week. They have done objectively an embarrassing job of scouting high school running backs and wide receivers over the past few cycles, since Dan Lanning got there, essentially. Atrocious. We using our rank, they would have just done a better job if they followed what C2C was saying, because or quite frankly, maybe even the services. I don't know what they've been doing, but they've done a very poor job. So I think the cupboard's bare there, essentially what I'm saying. And then I do have Eric Singleton number 1. And I do think we can all, I think, agree that Jackson Arnold was not particularly good this year. And I think it's really, really hard to assess what percentage of the blame he should get.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that high. I really think that there could be we comped him a little bit to Cade Klubnik coming out of high school. I think they're very similar players. It would not surprise me if he ends up having the Cade Klubnik bounce back this year and is pretty good in a system that hasn't necessarily been as strong the past couple years, but I think has produced some pretty strong quarterback play in the past. There's an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position. And I really think that, Singleton, Coleman, Simmons, that trio works so well as like the 3 of them complementary skill sets. I think this is a situation where if everything clicks there, we're talking about Singleton vaulting into top 20 draft pick next year with his athletic potential. So I think he has a lot to gain there at Auburn. And I do think that he can, and we talked about this class isn't good, at least from the next wide receiver class, from the fresh, the guys will be 3rd years that can declare next year for the first time. It's the Zachariah Branch, Lemon, Brandon Innes, none of these guys ended up hitting at the top of the thing, essentially, or they all still have some big question marks. So that there's some prime real estate in the first round that I think is calling out for somebody. I think he can get there at Auburn.
Maybe. My biggest fear is Jackson Arnold. I'm kind of lean more toward Mox, but I think
fair.
He's. But I mean, if you want to look at the glass half full, because I am the optimistic one. We have seen Hugh Freeze be successful for the most part with some of these quarterbacks. Now, a lot of that was more with Liberty, but maybe he's able to get the best out of Jackson Arnold. I think you could argue the best quarterback he's had in a long time. And I just looked it up, just so you know. It was on the Shannon Sharp thing, I guess, Club Shay Shay. I guess this is YouTube channel. This is from 10 months ago, though. So
I am so removed from the public zeitgeist when it comes to consuming sports information. Apparently, what was that?
Club Shay Shay is what I'm looking at on YouTube. I don't know if that's his actual. Yep, that's it. It's him right there with Dion and Cat Williams and among other people. I don't know who any of these other people are, but I know who Cat Williams and Dion are. But this was from 10 months ago. I just saw this the other day. I thought this was a recent interview. So yeah, if you just go to Club Shay Shay, and
I will not search that.
Sorry, okay, you don't have to search Club Shay Shay. I search Johnny Manziel dad interview ask Kevin Sumlin for money, and it pops up Club Shay Shay 8-minute long clip, and then there's also another one in there about him getting arrested. But yeah, it's Kevin Sumlin laughed at Johnny Manziel's dad when he asked for $3 million to stay at Texas A&M.
All right.
Interesting time. So I'll go look it up.
I'm going to go
promotion for Club Shay Shay, I guess.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Not that he needs it, but you're welcome, Shannon.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight's episode. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. I'll be quite honest. I didn't want to have Kirk on anyway.
Yeah.
Tired of his dog, tired of him. So maybe we'll get him rescheduled. Maybe we won't.
Maybe
That's up to him. He needs to clean up his act.
I was going to make a very, very classless joke. I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll be back next week. Until then, Matt Bruening and Austin Nace. Good night and good luck.